Hello and welcome, listeners, again to another fabulous episode here with myself and a fabulous guest. His name is Chaz Volk. Welcome, Chaz.
Thank you for having me. It's so great to be here, Sonia.
It's lovely to have you here. We've got some really interesting information to give to the listeners today. This is a hot topic. It really is. So, listeners, you've got to listen to Chaz. He's got lots and lots of information. So, our topic is how podcasts add more value to business. You can tell it's hot. Let me introduce you to him a little bit more, listeners. He is the CEO and producer of Mr. Thrive Media, whose goal is to generate engaging media while connecting artists across the nation. Sounds awesome. So Chaz is going to tell you a little bit more about not only his story, but also his business, Mr. Thrive Media, because I think that what he offers you is seriously fabulous. And then, of course, I'm going to pick his brains. Okay, take it away, Chaz. Tell us your story.
Yes, hello, and again, so yeah, sure. You want to hear the story? That's what you want to
A
hear?
little bit of your story. Let's talk about you first. Let's talk a bit about your story, and then we'll get
Sure.
into the topic.
Absolutely. Well, my story pretty much goes as follows, which is that I started this company this company was a side hustle once upon a time. And then in March of 2020, the world had different plans for how that year was going to go. And we entered into the pandemic that we are today. And like so many people across the world, I was laid off as well. And I was in this position of, where am I going to go? You know, I don't really have much of a crutch to lean on right now. So what am I going to do? All I had was myself, an empty room, and a desk with a laptop that had my side hustle on it. And so all I could afford to do was go full speed ahead. And lo and behold, we were able to create Mr. Thrive Media into what it is today. You know, we've been able to turn that side hustle not only into a full-time job, but into a business. So we've gone past the point of what it means to be a freelancer. And we are now effectively working with content creators, individuals, and small businesses to help them communicate with people in their communities that they've struggled to reach before. And we've created this intimate marketing tool that allows for these everyday people to be authorities in their field. And we've had some amazing success stories. We've had some triumphant learning curves. And along the way, we've really been able to, thrive. And it's been really fantastic.
That sounds really awesome. Like, there is a lot of people that have found themselves in that situation. There's a lot of people that have been trying to do that for quite some time. So you're going to have to share a lot of tips with us today. There's the tips around turning your sideline hustle into a business and thriving. And then there's also the tips all around what you actually do produce. So, you know, you've got your... as far as the topic is concerned, you know, adding more value to business as the podcast. So before we get into the actual podcast side, let's just start off with that first question I suggested there, that turning your sideline hustle into a business.
Absolutely. And I'm going to answer that question with a metaphor, and then I promise I'll make it all make sense at the very end. Okay, I very much promise. There was a Viking way back in the day named Harold Bluetooth. Okay, and Harold Bluetooth, you know, he was known for eating berries, and that's actually, he got blue teeth, and that was his nickname because he ate so many berries that his teeth became blue. He was also the reason why we have Bluetooth connection today, because he was one of the first leaders to use fire signals and smoke signals from mountaintops. The wireless communication, the distant communication that he was able to create, and that's why we have Bluetooth today. That's where the term Bluetooth comes from, is from Harold Bluetooth.
Love learning these things.
But the other thing, the other thing he was known for that not enough people talk about was the fact that he, at nighttime, when he would do a night raid with him and his raiders, and they would land on shore at nighttime, at whatever the enemy territory was, the first thing they would do They wouldn't, create the triage. They wouldn't be creating a place to gather resources and to make sure that they're ready for battle. They didn't do those things. The first thing they did was they burned their ships.
Yeah.
They burned the very ships they arrived on, so that way it was impossible for them to retreat. There was no retreat. They burned their ships, so that way they had to fight to the death. There was no plan B. There was only a plan A.
Mm.
So the reason why I bring up that story was because I was in that position where my ships were burned real quick. I was working a full-time job for a nonprofit. It was actually the first job that ever respected me in my entire life. I was very, very excited for it. And then I didn't have a job. And that was it. And it was very scary. And like I said, all I had was an empty room and a desk with a laptop on it with a side hustle on it. That side hustle had to be the thing. So pro tip number one, learn how to structure your days. When you structure your days and you create habits for yourself, you are going to create an equation for success. The three things that create your success are behaviors, techniques, and attitude. Chances are, if you're an entrepreneur, you already have a good attitude. And if you don't have a good attitude, then quite frankly, you're not ready to be an entrepreneur. That's like the thing that all entrepreneurs have in common is a good attitude. They love to fail, they love to learn, they love to grow. Yes. I myself find moments of pleasure from failure, but I also struggle with it too, all the time. It happens to everyone.
Yeah.
Your technique, you have to be good at what you do. And then your behavior is really what comes into having a structured day. Creating that structured day, allowing yourself to, okay, I'm going to wake up at this time. I'm going to exercise at this time. I'm going to start work at this time. I'm going to have all my meetings between these times and these times. And if I need extra time, I'm going to work in the late evenings. And then I'm going to go to bed at a late hour, and then I'm going to repeat and do it again. Like that's a crazy lifestyle that a lot of entrepreneurs start out with. That's where I'm at right now, and that's where a lot of other further established entrepreneurs beyond me are at right now as well. It doesn't stop, and you have to be ready for that life.
Yes, it's certainly a bit of a roller coaster life, isn't it, really? And I think that there's been a lot of people finding out about that, though, that they've been at home and thought, look, I actually would like to do a bit of a sideline hustle. Or, you know what, I actually really do want to get into this whole entrepreneur thing. And then, of course, there's the others that have been doing it for a little while and gone, oh my gosh, I just so have to pivot with what they were doing. So, we've all been doing it and everyone's been learning massively, and even those with the jobs and in the corporate. So with the monetization of it, though, one thing that sort of stands out to me is that podcasts are a hot commodity at the moment, or a hot trend, and it's fabulous and awesome. There's this pushback, though, because of the trends, that so many people have been offering it for free, for example, and yet there is costs involved with setting it up. So I don't think that there's a lot of people that know, one, how to monetize it, and two, how it really can add value to their business. So do you want to take us down that journey a little bit for us?
Absolutely. To get the monetization concept out of the way now, I would like to say to anyone who is thinking about creating a podcast, if you listen to the Joe Rogan Experience and you see the amount of money he is earning from his podcast alone, and you decide because of those numbers you want to start a podcast, don't. And I'm saying that, I don't mean to discourage people, but I'm saying that because many people out there have started a podcast not actually passionate about what they're going to talk about. They start talking about it and they realize that there's so much work to do that it's impossible to get to Joe Rogan's level. Yeah. Well, quite frankly, Joe Rogan's been doing this for a long time. He was one of the pioneers for podcasts, and now he reaps the benefits of that. So let's stop talking about Joe Rogan for a second. Let's start talking about today. If you start a podcast today, you want to monetize it, right? There are a lot of great ways to do this, but the first thing that you really got to start focusing on is building up that credibility on your end. You build credibility on your end by bringing in the top people within the niche that you're talking about. You bring on guests. That's honestly the best way to do it, is to bring on guests. And you got to reach out to those guests, the people who have the blue check marks, the verification check marks next to their name on social media platforms. You got to reach out to them and follow up with them. And if they don't get back to you, reach out to people in their circle, because the people in their circle will eventually bring you in as well.
Yeah.
I say all this because there is a chance that someone with a blue verified check mark, someone that is a big fish in your territory, they probably will not respond. But if they do respond, then great, bring them on. Focusing on that credibility first adds that value to your podcast, alerting people who are looking to market through podcasts that, oh, this is a host right here. This is a platform right here that we can market on, because their listeners are going to stay with them. So that's how that works on that end. But in terms of a more practical, not a more practical approach, but an accessible approach, I'd like to say, is there's a website called Podcorn, like popcorn, but with a D. Podcorn is basically a bulletin for different sponsorship opportunities from other podcasts and other different small businesses, and even mid-sized businesses and large businesses that are looking to promote. All you have to do is apply to the different bulletins on there, and you can get your podcast monetized via the Podcorn platform. You then mentioned the question about what was the second part of that question? You'll have to forgive me.
Sorry, I was thinking of the Podcorn then too. I'm thinking, yes, I must get back to that. So it was the monetization, and now you've got me now. Well, what was my question? Can you tell listeners that this
was it about? This is not scripted.
Not scripted.
That's right. Oh man.
That's right. But as far adding value to the business. So coming back to our topic. So then
Yes.
The second part of that question was, well, really, how does it add value to our business?
So that really is like the meat of the discussion, and really the I would say the crux of why podcasts are of value, and why my business, started its asset based on that concept. The answer is, we create blogs. Businesses are very used to creating blogs on a regular basis, and those blogs help with what's called search engine optimization. They help with connecting you across Google. So let's say you create a podcast and it just only gets like a handful of views. Your first episode ever only has 12 views. It's very discouraging to look at, and it can be upsetting, and it's completely understandable. But don't let that discourage you. And I say don't let that discourage you, because it's going to benefit you in the long run. Remember, your business, the direct assets, the direct profit streams of your business is still the goal of your business. By creating a podcast, you're not opening up necessarily a new profit stream. You're marketing it and becoming an authority for it. So people will, on Google, when they look up information on your business, your podcast is going to come up, and they're going to wonder, what is this podcast on that topic? Why would anyone have a podcast just around enter your type of business here, right? Let's say it's a business based on meditation and yoga, right? If you created a meditation and yoga podcast, people are going to type that in. People are going to look that up. They're not going to look up podcast per se, but they will come across it because of your podcast when they look for that information. And when they do find it, they will then be inspired to further check out what you have to do. Even if, by the way, they are already connected with a different organization that does yoga and meditation, right? But they're listening to your podcast at the same time, that still puts you in the back of their mind, and it adds that competition to what is going to happen. So your podcast is going to be able to market to people in a non-annoying way, like TV commercials and ads on YouTube, for example. Those are all obnoxious. People go out of their way to listen to what is widely considered the most accessible and intimate marketing tool there is, because you're basically having a one-on-one experience with that audience member. And it's pretty remarkable.
It is the whole that experience, even though that you're not there in a physical presence, it is that one-on-one really, that you're not having to worry about other people in the audience and the distractions and certainly the commercials and things like that. It is
Right.
it is a lovely experience. But how does it really benefit a business? Because like, I'm just thinking of with our audience, our listeners, we've got lots of different business owners. So some of them have got the bricks and mortar, some of them are online. Some of them might be doing a podcast. Some of them would be going, no way, Jose. But they think that, well, they might want to consider doing it just a little bit, or that they might get someone to do it on behalf of them. So how can it really help a business?
For any business owner who is listening, if you were planning on creating a podcast for only a short period of time, nothing is ever going to happen. You're never going to see a major effect directly from your podcast to your business. I'm just going to say that right now. Podcasts are very much a long-term snowball effect that you got to wait patiently for, like fishing. That metaphor for some reason threw me off when I was thinking about that, because I think I really liked that metaphor just now.
It was a really good metaphor.
Yeah, because you're fishing, you're out there alone and you're waiting for a long period of time, hoping this line that you've cast out there is something's going to catch, but it does one day. And let me just to further dissect that, Sonia, how long did it take for your podcast to catch before it started creating opportunities for you?
Oh, quite a few months. And probably a recent opportunity. It's a good opportunity. And I think that it was just sort of almost by chance, really, that 6-7 months, something like that.
Right, exactly. So it takes quite a bit of time. And by the way, for Sonia, that's a short period of time.
Yeah,
that's a short period of time.
That is a very short period of time compared to others.
Yeah. For my podcast and my company and what we're doing, we have everything listed under Mr. Thrive Media. It took about a year and a quarter from side hustle to actual company. That transition, happening somewhere towards the latter half of what I've been doing. And I've become affiliated with an organization called C-Suite that now automatically sponsors what I do. And the clients that come in, we get automatically sponsored for just creating content through my name. So that's a new thing as well. That's another way as well that you can get monetized. Going back to previous things, you work with me, you get automatically monetized. That's pretty much how it works. And we can talk about that if you look at the email right here. There we go. So that's how that works.
That's a handle, is it? That's not an email, is it? Oh, there at the top. Oh, duh.
Yeah. I was like, I did put the email in there, didn't I?
Yeah, right at the top.
You got me second guessing myself.
As it, MrThrive.com.
Right.
Yeah.
But the other way is that that a podcast can really make you an authority and can really benefit you is to be a brand with an authority. It sells itself. When you think of the most popular makeup brand, you might think of Sephora, for example. Sephora is a very widespread, international, very popular makeup brand. Guess what? They have a podcast called #LipStories. And it's just a community of Sephora shoppers who really enjoy the discussion of makeup. And then, what? Sorry?
Lipsticks, makeup, yes. Yeah. And you would think that that's such a visual thing, but yeah, people can talk about their experiences.
Right. Exactly. Another example of a company that is an authority in their field that actually has a podcast. There's a little known company called Shopify. Okay. Shopify does have a podcast called TGIF. Thank God it's Friday. And it's just a real good, feel good. This doesn't actually have to do with Shopify. There's nothing about it that says, this is how you use Shopify. These are the how-tos. It's actually just two guys having a good time hanging out. That's what it's about. You're just supposed to listen to it on a Friday and have a good day. That's all that podcast is for. And it's supposed to encourage those positive vibes to go be a Shopify entrepreneur.
Yep.
One of my personal success stories that I can tell you about, and how that authority success story kind of came to be. I had a client who, I was working with her on a podcast called Lemonade Land. Lemonade Land was a podcast about people who turns life lemons into lemonade. Really great concept. And she is one of the few people in the world to have fully recovered from multiple sclerosis, which is really remarkable. It's almost unheard of. It's really crazy. Like less than 1% of people who have ever had MS are able to fully recover. And she's one of the few. And she had a class, right? She had a class that she was going to host on how to deal and cope with MS from a spiritual standpoint, from a healing standpoint. And she used the podcast platform to market that class. In less than a week, which was, by the way, one episode, in less than a week, she used that podcast to tap into her community and get that class sold out.
Wow. That is so good. Yeah.
And that was like one of the big aha moments that made me feel so good about what I do. Like, that's remarkable.
Definitely. You're showing us that there, and as I heard someone else say, there's many ways to success. There's many paths to it. And it sounds like, yes, it's been creative. It's been that standout. Again, that sort of business, that's business tactics 101 right there. But it's also involving others, and it sounds very much like, yes, bring in the humanization of it all, bring in that aspect of just being chatting, talking, being a human, not necessarily have to achieve a particular objective. Someone like myself are so driven on objectives and goals and achievement that I think that, and if you were to profile me, I think that people typically like myself, we do find, even though, believe it or not, I can talk. Ooh, gee, no surprise there. But it's about what is that objective compared to those that just like to chat. I've often thought, gee, there's no objective. What do you think you're achieving? But there is achievement. So really then it's the perception of the achievement. I think I've just given myself a lesson there.
You really did. I mean, you brought that in full circle. That was remarkable. I'm really glad I got to witness that, because
you actually saw me thinking
perception of
achievement. But there's going to be a lot of those.
I mean, you can even read.
Sorry?
Yeah, I was going to say you could retitle the episode to "Podcast equals perception of achievement." It's only going to help your business. It's only going to help you grow. It's only going to help you. It's an investment that eventually leads to an indirect ROI, and sometimes even a direct ROI.
Yep. I like that whole perspective that it's an indirect, predominantly an indirect ROI. It's an investment, and it takes time. And I think that's the most important thing for a lot of people to realize, particularly because, yes, it's a hot trend, but it is a long-term investment thing. So then let me ask you, what are the practical appliances for producing podcasts?
Absolutely. If you want to go completely independent and produce your podcast, here are some good practical appliances. First one is that there is a great platform called anchor.fm, which you can easily upload your podcast to. And they make it very easy and comprehensible to get your podcast out there. And unless you manually distribute your podcast yourself, they'll put it on every single platform that you need your podcast to be on. So that's a really great appliance for sure. Another great practical appliance for podcasting would be to kind of, I say I don't use planning with a hard P. I use planning with a lowercase p. Plan the actual content you're going to put on there, and when I say that, it's because I really believe that you want your podcast to flow as naturally as possible. Just like this podcast, when we both had our senior moment and we were both trying to figure out, wait, where were we before? Like, that is actually entertaining. And people enjoy much more a conversation rather than a question answer, very straightforward black and white interview,
Yes.
right? They want to hear it flow. They want to hear it. They want to hear a podcast really turn into something of a story for itself, and maybe it'll carry the brand on its back with that story. Who knows, right?
Yeah.
You're advertising an idea, and your idea cannot be black and white. It has to have colors. It has to have a personality, and that personality comes from you. So be sure to plan your podcast, and be sure to, I think, warm up before you actually get on. Sonia and I, right before, we wiggled it out of our system. We get our body and our blood moving a little bit, and now we have energy, and now we feel great. Have energy behind the mic. And sometimes even, I do like silly warm-ups from my high school days before I start a podcast, where I start doing tongue twisters.
Oh, really? You do really
yellow.
old-fashioned.
Oh, yeah.
Go on, give us a.
Oh, yeah, I love tongue twisters.
Yeah, go on, do one.
All right, so my favorite tongue twister, requires a British accent. So forgive me if I put British accent. So you put your hands together like this, all proper, right? And you go, a box of biscuits. Go ahead and repeat after me. A box of biscuits. You got this.
I can't do it now. Now I really am going red. A box of biscuits.
You're doing great. A box of mixed biscuits.
A box of mixed biscuits. I've already got the tongue twisters going.
And a biscuit mixer.
And a biscuit mixer.
And then now you got to do it really fast. Ready? Oh. A box of biscuits, box of mixed biscuits, and a biscuit mixer. Go.
Oh my lordy. Box of biscuits, a biscuit mixer, and a what?
Close enough.
Okay.
You got this. No, you did great. That was awesome. Give yourself a pat on the back. That was great.
How about a fan? I'm having hot flashes today, peoples, and I'm cracking up laughing at myself. So you should see I'm starting to go red.
You did a great job for a first time. Thank you so much for entertaining that.
I can actually see that putting the accent into it does make the difference with how you actually use your mouth and the tongue. So,
that's right.
A lot more fun than those other horrible ones.
Right.
Yeah.
My last advice that I'd like to give anyone who is trying to start a podcast completely independently is start listening to the podcasts that inspire you the most. And when you're trying to find your voice, go ahead and emulate the hosts that you love the most. And you might be saying to yourself, wait, but that just means I'm copying them. Well, it doesn't mean you're copying them. No one's going to notice that you're trying right now to sound like, let's say you're trying to sound like Michelle Obama when she's speaking on her podcast, right? Because you are inspired by Michelle Obama and the cadence in her voice and the way that she presents herself. Which I'm not going to attempt that impression. I'll do a British accent.
I was waiting for it.
No,
I was getting all prepared there.
I'm not going to do that.
Okay.
But what I will say though is emulate the people who inspire you, because eventually you'll find the voice that you want, and you'll find an amalgamation of that voice plus the voice that you're trying to be, and that is how you become a good podcast host and start to produce from there.
So whether you end up being someone like me that end up having fits of laughter or not, some people say I'm a bit how now brown cow, but you should see it when it gets going, can't stop. I think that's nice as far as, so when you're saying to find your voice, is that more around your message and your brand, or what would you, what's your interpretation of voice, finding your voice?
Your voice will be the personality of your podcast. And just to tie this in with another metaphor from my past, from my personal past, I was in a fraternity and in college. And when I was in that fraternity, I became what is called the rush chair, which is pretty much like the recruitment person of that fraternity, of that organization. I was responsible for that. And one thing that we learned from the nationals of our fraternity was people don't join fraternities because they want to join a fraternity. People join fraternities because they have friends in the fraternity, which makes perfect sense. I can tell you right now, I did not want to join a fraternity. I thought I was way too nerdy, totally the wrong archetype to be in a fraternity, and there I was, now the recruitment chair in the fraternity, and I focused on being their friend. So why I say that is because people don't listen to podcasts because they don't want to. Because people don't listen to podcasts because they want to listen to a podcast. People listen to a podcast because they like the host.
Right.
Because they have a real deep connection with them.
Yep.
And their topic. And that is inspiring. And so that's why you have to really, I would say, build up on that concept of creating that one-on-one intimate conversation with your audience member, because they're going to get inspired or fall in love with you. And then that's a whole new problem, is when they actually fall in love with you and they start sending you stalker email.
Oh no.
I'm just kidding. That doesn't ever happen. But maybe it does. Who knows?
But that's really, really great that you've pulled that all together there, because the whole message, the whole brand versus the personality versus the tribe master, and creating that tribe thing. So, and that again is very much a hot topic too. And because our listeners at the moment are very, very diverse on where they're coming from and what they do, and their whole concept about what they're doing with business and where they want to go to, it's good to hear that there is still so much diversity that they can really tap into, and to be their own thing and continue forward. I mean, we sort of hear it really in a lot of different ways, but it's about how do you put it into the, I wanted to say boundaries, but boundaries, I don't like boundaries. So more so the concept about business, and therefore what to do with it, and do you monetize it, don't you monetize it, how do you evolve it as part of your business or your whole business. So really, really interesting that you've brought that to our attention. I also want to ask you, so then, because you're a producer, a screenwriter, and a podcast producer, and a director. Can you give us a little bit more about what is the difference of that? What is the value of that for people's podcasts compared to people just jumping on and having a chat?
Yeah, absolutely. My experience in the film industry, my experience that she was alluding to, where, I did screenwriting and I did directing, and now I do podcasts, and I produce them. I'm a storyteller, and you can create a podcast by yourself, but a podcast at the root of what it is a story. You really want someone on your side who knows how to be a good storyteller. Now, that is a very arrogant thing of me to say, that I'm a good storyteller. But if you're listening this far to Sonia's podcast because of how intriguing the concept is of what I'm talking about, it might mean I'm a good storyteller. But yeah, exactly. You do want to tell a good story, and you want to figure out what works and what doesn't work. And it's okay to go through the trials and errors, but to have someone with you removes a lot of those errors, because I've already made them, and I'm going to make sure that none of my clients make those same errors that I've made in the past. I've done the classes both in the classroom and in real life, the classes that life has to offer when creating a podcast. And you know what, this journey has, I've really been going down this rabbit hole for almost 2 years now, and I'm already pretty darn good at it.
Yeah, you are. And you've also incorporated the networking as part of your organization as well, which is always so important to do with business, so that it helps grow you, grow as others. Like my ethos is about paying it forward and helping others and connecting people together. So yeah, people can do quite a few things with their business. It's So as a producer though, what is it that a producer does?
Great question. The type of producing that Mr. Thrive Media does is we're not a work for you, but we're a work with you kind of concept. What we're going to do is we're going to hear what kind of podcast you want to create. We're going to help you figure out the exact culture behind your podcast, tell your story as best as possible. We'll help you with the conceptualization and the branding of your podcast. And then we leave the rest of that content decision making up to you. What we then do on our end is all the back end work, all the technical work. So we do the audio and video production work. We then help you with the distribution of it. As mentioned before, we do the conceptualization and the branding, which may have changed along the way. We then help you with the marketing of it. We make sure that your podcast is put out there on the social media platforms necessary and engage with the audience in a very positive way. We check out those analytics, make sure that they're working to your benefit. And if they're not, then we have to reassess our strategy. We do help in some ways with web design, but quite frankly, if you do need something more complicated, we will bring in a third party to come and assist in the web design. But overall, the sky's the limit in terms of what we can do. It's just a matter of how we can work together.
That sounds really interesting. Because I think there's a lot of the times when people start getting into it, they don't realize all of the different sorts of things that can be involved and can be done. It starts like anything. When business, you start off like this and it grows and grows and grows. You go, I need some help and guidance on that.
That's right.
Yeah, so that sounds really, really lovely, that of the sort of services that you provide, and it helps. I suppose it would help a lot of entrepreneurs be able to focus also on the other things that they do too. So let me ask you then, what is it that you've got now on the horizon moving into this year, 2021?
Before I answer that, I want to say thank you so much for those kind words. That really does mean a lot. Thank you.
Oh, that's all right. Pleasure.
What 2021 has in store for us is that we as a company are planning to scale sevenfold in every way that we can. Sonia mentioned that we have a network as well. And as you can see right here, I'm getting really good at this now. We do tap into our network through Facebook, and we host monthly events. Why I bring this all up is because we want to further our outreach across the globe on connecting these artists and helping them collaborate. Artists are the most hard-hit people out there during this pandemic, unfortunately, where they've all lost their jobs and haven't recovered from that unemployment area. And it's very heartbreaking. It's very sad. So I bring all this up because we have a store. We have the MrThriveStore.com that you can purchase any Mr. Thrive Media gear. And what you'll also be seeing as the months go on is that we actually are commissioning a lot of those designs that go onto our shirts and our sweatshirts and our beanies and our merchandise. Those commissioned projects come from 10% of our proceeds. So we do like to tip our toe a little bit into the social entrepreneurial capabilities that we have at our fingertips. So that's one aspect. That's one thing that we do. Another thing that we plan to further do, we plan to continue our outreach to see what other businesses out there could possibly utilize our services. So if you're listening right now and you're interested in acquiring our services and being able to get yourself out there as an authority figure in your brand, go ahead and email me and tell them that Sonia sent you. And what I'll do is I'll make sure that you get the care that you and Sonia's network deserve.
Lovely, lovely. That's a nice offer. Thank you for that. So yes, I have often said to people with the different sorts of trainings that I do with them, and I'll say, just tell them, or tell your partner, or tell your staff, Sonia said. I get into all sorts of strife, but at least this is a fun strife. This is a fun strife.
Right.
To go to Chaz and say, Sonia said to say that I'm reaching out to you and you've got to look after me. So I like that. So Chaz at MrThrive.com. And of course, that information will be on the page there where where all of the offers are. with soniaclark.com/episode, and just click on Chaz Volk. So before we do a sign off, is there any other last minute things you might like to say to the audience?
Well, one thing I'd like to say to you personally, Sonia, is that you've been a fantastic host. And I want to thank you for having me on your platform and giving me a chance. We are a new company. You definitely did not have to have us on here, but we are here. And I am eternally grateful. And I only hope I can further witness your journey and see if there's any way I can help. That same kind of help that I offer to you, I offer to anyone else who is listening right now. Please, again, email me, chaz@mrthrive.com. Let's not just talk business. Let's also talk about the things that make us human beings. Let me tell you quickly about the things that I like. I like to do woodworking. I like video games. I like watching a lot of TV shows, and I read a lot of books. I definitely enjoy listening to podcasts, and I love exercising. If you want to meet with me just to talk about any of those extracurricular activities, by all means, you should reach out. And when you reach out, we should bond over that. I would love to do that. It would be great to be your friend and make new friends. I make new friends all the time, and it's always such a rewarding experience. At the very end of the day, it just makes me a happy person. I like spreading happiness. So let's be friends. And if you do want to talk shop, then we can also talk shop too.
Cool. That's really, really lovely. Thank you very much. Woodworking, or did you say, or waterworking? Woodworking.
Yeah, that's woodworking, like carpentry. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Just recently a project that I had done was I found out that my family was getting rid of an old coffee table that we had.
Yep.
So what I did was I decided to completely repurpose and refurbish that coffee table. I removed the drawers from it. I actually made a lot of really cool carved grooves into it. And then I melted crayons into those grooves to make a really cool wax tie-dye kind of pattern, the color gradient that went into those channels, and made for a very colorful table. And now that coffee table is in my living room, and I'm very thankful that I have it and that it looks as great as it does.
I got a whole visual going on there. So I think that sounds really awesome. You should take a photo, send it to me, and I'll put it on that page where all your info is, so everyone can go in and have a good look. I think that sounds awesome.
Yeah, absolutely. I'll be happy to send you. Yeah, okay, absolutely. Cool. And then when you see this email right here, send me your woodworking projects as well. If you do woodworking, I'd love to see and bond over.
That sounds really awesome. Really, really lovely. Look, I thank you very much for your time today, and your and giving your pearls of wisdom to the people, and helping to encourage a lot of people to use this as a platform and to achieve their goals. So look, thank you very much, and bye for now.
Thank you, Sonia. Have a great day.
Thank you. You too. Bye-bye.